Good morning. Welcome to Law Power Hour. Today I'm going to be on the air by myself because I think it's really important that we have a frank discussion about what's going on in the legal community as it relates to automobile no fault. The Automobile No Fault Act was passed in October of 1973. I sat on the committee to pass the act, and the purpose was to ensure that injured individuals would be paid first-party benefits if they were insured, or through a state fund if they were not insured and they were riding as a passenger in a vehicle and there was no insurance coverage available for the individual through the state fund for wage loss, for medical expenses, for attendant care and replacement services. Now, we're going to talk about all of these, but we've got to talk about a bigger problem first. And what I'm going to say is not to make a disparaging remark about TV advertisers, but I think it's a lot of hooey, and that's a polite word that I can use on the air to say, we got $3 million for this guy's case, or $10 million for this guy's case, or we've collected $3 billion. And these TV advertisers are spending $12 to $15 million a year for TV advertising to tell you all of this. Consequently, a lot of people are going to them because they're in the volume business. They are in the marketing business. They don't handle half of the cases that they advertise for. They refer them to other lawyers who do the work on the first party, and they cherry pick the cases and keep the good third-party cases. But here's the bigger problem. Since the law was passed, a lot of cottage industries developed. And I'm going to go through them with you so you have a better understanding of what's going on. All of a sudden, the transportation industry, transporting injured victims to and from the doctor in limousines. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. $60 to $100 each way to go to the doctor. When you can, if you don't own a car, your car's wrecked in an accident, you can call up one of these transportation services like Uber or Lyft and get there for 10 or 15 bucks. I use it all the time for my clients who don't have vehicles and have to come to the office. Yesterday, I told the lady she had to go down to the housing authority because she was going to be evicted, and she has a vision problem. I said, look, just call me when you're ready to go and we'll use Uber to get you there. Well, that's the reality of the situation, but not to have some industry that's supported by victims from accidents, transporting them to and fro, getting them there, getting them to their appointments. Unless they're in a wheelchair, they don't need a specialized vehicle to take them to the doctor. It's just ridiculous. And more importantly, it's these transportation people and these tow truck drivers and ambulance people that are referring people to clinics. I'm going to share with you a story about that shortly. So that's a big problem there with the transportation. The second problem is, as I pointed out on the air before, you don't need to go to a lawyer just because you're involved in an accident if you're insured. If you're not insured and you're driver of the car, you're not going to receive any benefits. If you're a passenger in the car, you're going to receive them from the driver's insurance company if you have no insurance, if you qualify, or you're going to receive the benefits from the driver of the other vehicle if they're insured. If there's no insurance, then you're going to go to the state fund. However, and regardless of where you go, you need quality medical treatment. So the best way to get quality medical treatment is to go to your primary care physician. If you don't have a primary care physician, you can go to the emergency room, get them to evaluate you, and they'll refer you to a quality physician in the system. They don't have to refer you to a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. You absolutely don't need a lawyer when you're immediately involved in an accident unless you don't have insurance and you need guidance. That's all you need a lawyer for. And I'm going to explain to you why. The insurance companies are going to put up a wall and defend and pay your claim. But all you have to do is get a hold of a quality lawyer who can guide you. All you have to do is get a hold of a lawyer who will say to you, now look, you're involved in an accident. You're entitled to receive 85% of your wages. Call your insurance company. Get your wage loss form. Fill out your wage loss form. Turn it in, and you'll get paid. Fill out your medical form, and you'll get paid. It takes about 30 days. The law gives them a 30-day grace period following an accident. They're real simple rules. If you don't know what you need to do when you're involved in an accident, you can call me or any other qualified lawyer, and we'll give you that information. The reason I'm saying this is that you are the ones who are entitled to receive the wage loss benefit for your injury if you're disabled from your accident. You don't need an attorney receiving a third of your wage loss benefit. I want you to think about that for a second. If you're earning $600 a week and 15% of that is $90 a week, you're going to get $510 a week in wage loss. If you have an attorney representing you, you're going to pay out another third every week in your wage loss. It doesn't make sense. The law was designed, and I'll repeat that, the law was designed to protect you, not to pay for legal services that you don't need. Now, when you go to the doctor, if you go to a quality doctor through your primary care physician or through the emergency room at the hospital, you're not going to be paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to a clinic to have an MRI. If you need an MRI, a diagnostic test to determine whether you have an injury to one of your nerves or your disc or to one of your bones in your body, like a shoulder injury where you want to look at your shoulder with an MRI to see if you've got a rotator cuff tear, or a knee injury to see if you have an impingement syndrome or a loss of cartilage or a medial ligament injury. Consequently, you're going to get good quality treatment. There are people who advertise they'll do MRIs if you have a prescription for $250. Why should you be paying some doctors $3,000 for the same test that you can get for $250? This is the reason why insurance has not gone down. This is the reason why a lot of people are uninsured. Over 45% of the people in Wayne County have no automobile insurance. And I'm sure in Oakland County, 30% of the people have no insurance. And this is absurd. It makes it dangerous for anybody to want to drive in either county if there's no insurance, because that causes their insurance rates to go up. For example, I live in Oakland County. My son lives in Wayne County. He's in college. I've got to pay $6,000 a year for car insurance for him because he's in Wayne County. In Oakland County, I pay $2,000 a year. Why is there a higher rate? Because most of the people, 40% or better, are uninsured. So if we want to avoid these problems, how do we do it? We've got to start by cutting back on overcharging, overutilization of services. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about a horror story that occurred. A client came to me a year and a half after the client was involved in an accident. And this client was picked up at the hospital at the emergency room by a limo driver who referred the client to a clinic for physical therapy even before she had a doctor. After several visits for physical therapy, she was referred to a doctor. They ordered several diagnostic tests, MRIs, CAT scans, needle tests to determine nerve damage. By the time she got all done, she'd incurred over $83,000 in medical bills. Doesn't mean she wasn't treated, but it means that she became responsible for all of these bills, and it's not fair. And this is the problem when you're not getting the proper medical treatment. This is what's disturbing me, and this is what's going on all over the state of Michigan. Now, I want you to call in with questions because I never hear from you folks on Saturday morning. I don't know if you're sleeping or you're interested in what's going on. So I'm going to take a break for a minute. I'll be right back, and we'll talk about it.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. I always love your show. You always bring great information to your audience. I just have a quick comment, and that is until we get even headlining, we'll just continue to be lying and lying about the injustices and the unfair pricing that's going on with certain zip codes, ethnic groups, communities, neighborhoods, and the list goes on. But until we can squash the redlining, all we're doing is lying to ourselves and others about the so-called insurance plans that they keep trying to offer us to escape the real GOAT. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. And the point's well taken. We've got to work together to tame this monster, and we can't tame this monster unless we're realistic about what's going on. The point I've been trying to make this morning so far is that if you're injured, you're entitled to be paid and compensated for your injury. You should be compensated fairly. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should not seek legal counsel if you need it, because sometimes cases are complicated and they're not going to be handled immediately, and insurance companies are not going to hand over money to you just because you're involved in an accident. I'll give you the perfect example of that. Husband and wife aren't living together. Husband gets new insurance. He puts down that he's single. It's because the husband and wife are not divorced, but they're separated, trying to put their marriage back together. Well, just because he put down single on the form, insurance company doesn't want to pay the wife who's driving a family car for injuries sustained in the accident. That's ridiculous. So the insurance companies create problems for families as a result of accidents and accident victims, just like attorneys and doctors create problems for them. Consequently, you should call attorneys for guidance, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to retain or sign up with the attorney. You need information. And if you get information, good attorneys will mail you out a whole packet and explain to you the differences between wage loss benefits, attendant care if you need somebody to help bathe you, dress you, feed you, and transport you to and from your appointments, replacement services if you need somebody to help you with the house, and how long you're entitled to receive these benefits and how they're paid. Doesn't necessarily mean that the attorney who's giving you this information has to get involved in the claim unless you need assistance in that claim, because you need to pay for those services regardless of whether there's attorney involved or not. And I'm sure you're no different than the rest of us. If you're injured and you're entitled to receive 85% of your wages, well, you don't need those wages reduced by another third because an attorney's taking a fee off the top. And believe it or not, there's some attorneys out there who dog these claims for 90 days to let the accumulated back pay build up. Good morning.
Hi, morning.
I'm well, thank you.
That's good. I thought you were talking about insurance, and it's the entire reason I don't have a car. Basically, I just can't afford it. And I was just wondering, like, what would be the best method for me to go about getting car insurance when I'm only working about $400 every 2 weeks?
Well, the best thing for you to do in terms of getting car insurance is to call up one of the larger companies and talk to them about coming up with a monthly payment plan for insurance. I'm not entitled to advertise on my show, but I see a lot of good commercials out there with good companies that provide coverage. And I don't know where you live. Where do you live?
I live in Oakland County.
Okay, well, in Oakland County, it's going to be cheaper for your insurance to begin with. And there's some pretty good companies, the big 3 or 4, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're all good companies. They're all reasonable. If you've got a good record, you should be able to get insurance. In terms of getting insurance, you'll get a discount in your insurance if you ask for a coordinated medical policy. If your employer provides you with medical coverage.
They do not.
Okay, well then, you don't need a coordinated policy, but a coordinated policy would give you a reduction. But if you pay for your own medical coverage under the Affordable Care Act, you can still have a coordinated policy where your insurance is primary and your automobile insurance is secondary. And that helps the cost of your insurance. Another thing that helps the cost of your insurance is collision coverage. If you're driving an older car, you've got to weigh the cost of the repairs if the car is totaled in an accident versus the cost of the car. I'll just give you a simple example on that. If you buy a car for $4,000, you don't want to get collision insurance on that car for more than the value of the car, because if the car is totaled, it's totaled.
Right,
Right. If you try and repair it, you can spend more in repairing the car than the car's worth. So you could sit down with a good insurance broker and get this information. I mean, if I had to give you the names of the insurance companies that I would go to that I favor, I favor, and this is not a commercial, this is just a fact.
Okay.
I've had very good dealing with Allstate. I've had very good dealing with USAA and Liberty Mutual. So
Okay.
talk to them about
Okay,
shopping
definitely.
for your insurance, okay? And
Okay,
thanks for
cool.
calling.
Thank
Okay. Have a good day.
you. You too.
Now, getting back to what I was talking about, here's a person who wants to get insured. So when they get insured, if they get involved in an accident, they need to get assistance and have somebody explain to them what their benefits are. There should not be one attorney who should refuse to give you that kind of information for free, because you can Google up that information online. It's accessible all over the place. And I know if you Google up automobile no fault, you'll see one blankety blank lawyer. You'll see, I get millions of dollars for accident victims. Well, who cares? It's not really important right now. What's important is that you've had an accident. It's altered or changed your life. People don't look at this in terms of what's occurred to the individual. Attorneys should look at it that way, and they'd be further ahead. Your life has been changed, just like this young lady talked about. God forbid she gets in an accident, she's insured, she has a vehicle that she's paid for, it's $4,000 or $5,000 car, it's her transportation. She loses the transportation. She doesn't know what to do. Why should she, after being injured physically, having property damage, losing an asset, have to pay a lot of money to an attorney to manage her claim when all she needs is information? It's there, it's available. A good attorney will sit down and educate. Educate is the word. You, if you're injured in an accident, you need to know what the pitfalls are in seeking medical treatment. You need to know how to present your wage loss and what information the insurance company requires to pay your wage loss. You need to bring in the documentation, and you need to know when you send something to an insurance company to keep a copy for yourself so that you've got a log and proof that you sent the information in. It doesn't require a lot of work to explain this. Believe me, anybody who needed this information, my firm or a lot of firms like mine would give you the information for free. Once you contact an insurance company, if you've been involved in an accident, they give you a claim number. If you keep that claim number, that's all you need in the beginning. You've got 1 year from the date of the accident to make a claim for your first party benefits. It's just a matter of documentation. And if you don't know how to keep track or document the information, and you've got somebody in your household who can assist you, then you and that individual should make an appointment, talk with an attorney, and proceed accordingly. I assure you, in time, if you have a serious injury, it will come to the surface, and you'll know that you need assistance in evaluating that injury and making a claim. You'll know if the doctors tell you whether you're going to be able to go back to work, and you'll know if you're going to need surgery. But what you don't know is whether you made the right decision in the doctor that you chose. And that's why I tell you not to listen to the limousine driver or the tow truck driver to select your attorney or your doctor. Neither one of them is an educated professional, nor is the ambulance driver or the nurse in the emergency room and referring you to a lawyer. You need to have a qualified lawyer give you advice, a qualified lawyer explain things to you. It doesn't require contacting a TV advertiser. It doesn't require you contacting anyone other than a responsible lawyer who can give you straight up information about your claim. I'll be right back.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
The reason I'm talking about this no-fault issue today, I'm going to talk about a few other issues related to the upcoming elections, is that some of the people who are running for office are promising reform. And I think after the November election, we're going to have to hold them accountable. We need reform. And I believe that one of the areas we need reform is the No-Fault Act. Well, it's not just one part of it that's going to cause the rates to go down, but I want you to listen to a proposal that I think is really important. I think that we should cut attorney fees. And my brothers and sisters in the bar, if you're listening, God bless you, but I think we should cut attorney fees on first-party cases. I think that on first-party cases, the maximum attorney fee should be 15%, and that's all we should receive. It's just like workers' compensation settlements. Why? Because all we're doing is administrative paper pushing. We're not really engaged in comprehensive litigation. I think if we have to go to trial, we should receive a higher fee, but if we don't go to trial, there should be a maximum attorney fee of 15%. I think if we have to institute a lawsuit, we should get a higher fee on the back benefits that are due, and that should be the way it's handled. I also think that doctors, and I mean all doctors who provide medical services for injured victims in automobile accidents, should be subjected to fee schedules with minimums and maximums based upon the prevailing fees in their areas. For example, a lady called in from Oakland County. Let's say an orthopedic surgeon charges $110 a visit in Oakland County. Well, it shouldn't be $200 for the visit just because the doctor wants $200. I think it should be set by a schedule. I think that if a case goes to litigation, the fees that doctors receive for depositions should be controlled the same way. Instead of doctors charging $1,500 an hour for a deposition and having to pay an additional $500 for a court reporter for a deposition, the doctor's fee should be maximized at $750, and that should be based upon schedules, because the doctors aren't there to profit at the expense of injured victims, nor are the attorneys. They're there to serve injured victims and assist injured victims in their attempt to recover for their damages. You know, I was reading the newspaper the last 2 days about overcharging and overutilization, and one of the large hospitals was fined about $86 million because all they were doing is recycling patients through different parts of the hospital for services through doctors that received incentives by ensuring that the patient stayed in the system and had services there. Same thing happens in accident cases. But we don't want it to be done at the expense of people who were the victims of the accidents. We don't want them to be victimized just because they were involved in an accident. This whole opiate epidemic occurred because people were victimized by physicians and pharmacists. We don't want these things to occur anymore, and the only way to avoid them is to have accountability. Well, accountability cannot begin unless the people who are looking for services are asking questions. Now, if you are involved in an accident and you call up an attorney, you certainly have a right to ask the attorney for information about your claim. They all have literature. They can send it to you in the mail, or you can go on the internet and get the information yourself. You can call up your insurance company you're involved in and actually get a claim number. You don't need an attorney to do that. If you're uninsured and you're a passenger in a vehicle and the driver doesn't want to give you the information, you can call an attorney who will tell you how to get that information so you can get your claim started. It's real simple procedures that can be followed straightforward. The only problem you're going to have is if you're looking at an accident as the lottery, where you think that you're going to get that golden ticket and you're going to be like Willy Wonka at the chocolate factory, or you're going to be that big winner in the lottery because you've been involved in an accident. Well, I'll tell you something. There's not enough money around to pay an individual for human suffering. So why would you want to recover all that money for being involved in an accident if you're not really injured? It doesn't make sense. Something's messed up upstairs if you look at life that way. However, if you look at life correctly and you've been victimized because you've been injured, you don't want to be victimized again and again and again and again by the doctors, by the physical therapists, by the transportation people, by the diagnostic people, by the attorneys, by the insurance company, because then you lose faith in the system. And good, honest, hard-working people need protection. And that's what it comes down to. Now, having said all that, there are simple steps to follow, and I'll give them to you in order. When you're involved in an accident, contact your insurance company immediately, get a claim number. Go to your primary care physician or the emergency room. If you need follow-up care because you're having a problem, it's simple. Ask the emergency room for a referral to a doctor, or ask your primary care physician for a referral to a specialist. If you need diagnostic testing, don't get diagnostic testing at some clinic that you're not familiar with. Go through the system that you use. If your doctor recommends a hospital for the diagnostic testing, go to the hospital. Don't go to one of these private pay clinics. Be cautious about where you go for your medical treatment. Don't go to a doctor who's got a reputation for over-treating, over-utilizing, or cutting. And I mean cutting. Some doctors, you go in there, you're there for 90 days, then they want to cut on you unnecessarily. You got to be real cautious. It's your body. Your body's a temple, and you have to treat your body like a temple with respect. So, having said that about the medical side of it, now, if you need replacement services, you need a prescription from your doctor. If you can't do your housework at home and you don't have a prescription, you're not going to get replacement services because the insurance company's not going to pay it. And if you get replacement services and you have a relative perform it, you need their Social Security number or the Social Security number of anybody who's providing the replacement services, and you have to keep track and have receipts. If you don't pay them, you have to make a promise to pay them in writing and keep a log of what they do for you on a daily basis. But you cannot get those benefits paid for without a prescription from the doctor. And the same is true of attendant care. Attendant care means that you can't take care of yourself. I'll give you a simple, straightforward example. You have an accident, you break a leg. You need crutches. You can't get in and out of bed, you can't get in and out of the shower, you can't balance yourself, you can't drive your car, so you need help bathing, dressing, going to the doctor, getting in and out of bed. That's 6 hours a day. You're entitled to get attendant care for that if you can't do it yourself. It's all there, it's all available. If it's properly documented, you're going to get paid for it. You're going to run into obstacles because the insurance company is going to send you out for an evaluation. And if the insurance company sends you out for an evaluation and the doctors don't want to pay your claim because they say that you shouldn't receive those benefits in the future, that's when you contact the lawyer. That's when you get the lawyer to intercede, because that good lawyer is going to do the following. He or she is going to take the report from the insurance company's doctor, which the insurance company has to send you under the insurance contract if your benefits are cut off. Let's say I'm involved in an accident. 90 days out after the accident, insurance company sends me to a doctor. Doctor says I'm no longer disabled. I'm entitled to receive a copy of that report, and I can take it to my doctor and let my doctor read it, and my doctor will make a determination as to whether he or she agrees with the independent doctor, who's not independent, hired by the insurance company, to make a decision as to whether you should continue to receive treatment. And therein are the lines drawn in the sand that create litigation. If you go back to your doctor says you need treatment, get a letter from your doctor, turn it into the insurance company. Maybe you'll get continued benefits. Maybe you'll have to file a lawsuit. But you don't need a lawyer until you have a dispute. Now, having said that, and we'll take a break for a minute, we'll be back.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR, Detroit Live.
So we've covered a lot of ground about automobile no-fault today, and I want to shift gears and talk about another topic that I think is really important. And this is dedicated to convicted felons. Because convicted felons have an opportunity after their felony or 2 misdemeanors to have their record expunged. And expungement is a privilege. 5 years after you're off probation or parole, and you have a felony conviction in state, not a federal conviction, but a state conviction in Michigan, you have an opportunity to get your record expunged. And corresponding with that opportunity to get your record expunged is an opportunity to have a better life and a lot of doors open for you. Now I want to talk about the flip side. So you're a convicted felon. In order to be a convicted felon in Michigan, it means that you can't possess or own a weapon, a gun, a shotgun. You can't keep a gun in the house. You can't have a gun for protection. Because if you do, you're going to be in trouble. I had the pleasure of representing a gentleman this year who was a convicted felon, who got drunk, fell asleep in his car, left the motor running with the keys in the ignition, which creates a very serious problem because the police came by and charged him with driving under the influence of alcohol. So when they asked him to get out of the car, and they did sobriety check, and they arrested him for drunk driving, they also did an inventory check of his car, which they have a right to do, because he was already under arrest. And they found the gun. Well, when they found the gun, guess what? He was charged not only with driving under the influence of alcohol, he was charged with felony firearm charge. Now, there's a state law felony firearm charge and there's a federal one. Under the federal, it's a 5-year felony. Under the state, it's 2. He was charged under the state law, which means that there's a mandatory 2-year sentence that he has to serve. Now, there's absolutely no reason why a convicted felon should have to go back to jail, have a felony, have incarceration. This man had been out for 15 years. 15 years. He was a businessman, and now he's back in prison for 2 years. Couldn't avoid it because not only did he have a weapon in his car, but it was a stolen weapon, so he had an additional charge, possession of a stolen weapon. So here you go, 15 years out, clean, trying to build a life, and you have this problem. Well, it's not that simple, because any convicted felon who has any kind of weapon on them, whether it's a gun or a knife or a scissors or a box cutter, it can be considered a weapon under certain circumstances and can subject you to incarceration and a term of years in prison. It's almost impossible to avoid that charge if you're in a vehicle by yourself. If you're in a vehicle with another person and that person has a weapon and you're driving the vehicle, you can be charged with possession of the gun because you're driving the vehicle. Consequently, the point is, if you're a convicted felon, don't have a gun, don't be around weapons. I know it's a lot to say in a little bit of time there, but it's an important message. So I'm trying to reflect with you during the year some of the problems that developed in addition to the no fault that we have to deal with. In Social Security disability, we've been having problems with Social Security disability cases where individuals have substance abuse issues. Because if you have a substance abuse issue and no other issue and you try to get Social Security because of the substance abuse, you're not going to get it. The government does not reward individuals with substance abuse by giving them Social Security disability. If you have a substance abuse problem and an emotional problem, you may get Social Security disability benefits. There's a big distinction between the two, and you need the assistance of a lawyer to define them. And there are some really fine lawyers out there who specialize in Social Security disability. Hire one that you can go in and visit in their office. Don't go online and hire one, because they just bring in lawyers from all over the country that they hire to try their cases. You need a hands-on relationship with your Social Security disability lawyer. He or she has to be able to guide you in what information you need to bring in to get your benefits. And believe me, with proper guidance in the proper case, if you follow the instructions of a qualified Social Security attorney, you're going to get Social Security disability benefits. If you go to one of these online people and you file online with the online attorneys, you're not going to get that kind of relationship built up to assist you in drawing benefits. And it's ever so important to have that relationship, because with full disclosure, you might get your benefits earlier than going through the full hearing process. The full hearing process takes about 18 months, but if you have certain types of medical problems, that can be shortened to 9 months, maybe a year at most. So these are a couple of the areas that we've had to deal with in the past year that I think are important to discuss. The last area that I wanted to mention to you has been a big problem for us in the last year is people do not have their affairs in order. I could spend 10 hours talking about this, but I'm going to make it real short and to the point. If you don't have a will, if you don't have a power of attorney or medical power of attorney, and you get sick, you're going to be in trouble. If you own a home and you have to go on Medicare and you haven't made out what we call is a ladybird deed where you transfer the title to someone other than yourself in the event that, God forbid, you cannot stay at home and you have to go into the nursing home, you're going to lose that home. You can save that home as an asset for your family if you follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you lose it all. Speaking of the rules, next week we're going to be talking about water rates and water runoff on the show. As I promised, somebody asked me to put a show on a while ago about this, and Valencia Mobley from the Detroit Water Board is going to be our guest to talk about water rates and impervious water drainage problems. That means water running off your roof down the drain, and you're getting charged for reclamation of water. So next week, tune in. We're going to cover those things. And thanks for listening today. I'm sorry more of you didn't call in. But as usual, thank you for listening.